Before I begin my usual spiel, well, I figured I should address something that we all probably heard about in the news, especially if you're into film. Yesterday, legendary film critic Roger Ebert passed away after a long battle with cancer, surgeries to repair various fractures. His point being, his health wasn't doing too good, and it finally took its toll on him yesterday. I found out in the evening through Facebook, like a lot of people, and yeah. Now, personally, I really didn't get into a lot of the Roger Ebert stuff until my adulthood. It was just a case that I kind of watched some shows of At the Movies and a lot of the review shows he did to just kind of get an idea how to do this stuff. I mean, first, as I'm sure most of you know, I initially was going to copy the Nostalgia Critic with these reviews, but then when I kind of looked into it and kind of see how a lot of these reviews are done, I kind of started copying Roger Ebert's style. As you notice, I kind of tend to cater my views on movies around the demographic that would probably watch them, similar to how he did. That was initially how I pitched the series of Romney's reviews to the editors-in-chief at the time. So, yeah, while I didn't necessarily follow his reviews religiously like a lot of other people, I think I can speak for a lot of people who review movies on the internet in the sense that we all take various cues from Roger Ebert in some regard or another, especially since he actively encouraged a lot of people like us to review movies on the internet. He actively encouraged that sort of thing. Some people may, if you agree or disagree with some of his thoughts on movies, you can't argue that the man accomplished a lot in his life. I mean, he was the first film critic to win a Pulitzer Prize, so yeah. All I can say is he will be missed. He was an inspiration to a lot of people, a lot of people who became film critics, a lot of people, even if they're just becoming film critics to kind of support themselves while they're trying to pursue their other endeavors. So, yeah. That's all I can really say about that, really. With that said, let's get started with this episode of Romney's Reviews. Now, I know I'm gonna probably get a lot of flack, particularly from a lot of my friends for this, but I haven't seen The Evil Dead. I never really was interested in it. I only saw Army of Darkness because a lot of people said, hey, if you like horror comedies like Shaun of the Dead, you'll like Army of Darkness. I mean, here's my copy of The Evil Dead that I bought at Kmart last year. It still has the cellophane, it still has the price tag. I've been meaning to watch it, but I just haven't had the time because, well, I just haven't really been that interested. And so, yeah, although I've seen Army of Darkness, I haven't seen the original, so I can't gauge how faithful it is to the original, but guessing my reactions from this film, it's not very, it's completely different from the original film, but I at least understand some of the iconic imagery and some of the stuff that made those films achieve the cult status that they have today, so I'm not flying into this completely blind, but I can't really gauge how faithful it is to the original beyond what little I know of the franchise. So in the case of the story, I really liked the main characters and the chemistry and the dynamic they had between them, even if one of them was possessed for most of the movie. However, there were two things that kind of bothered me that kind of hurt the story. One, and I know I'm probably gonna get even more flack for this, was the over-the-top gore. I mean, I'm not one of those people who thinks that, oh, gore can be beautiful, or, oh yeah, let's watch all this blood. I'm of the philosophy that if you want something to be gory, it has to have a point, it has to have a purpose, it has to add something to the story. And while some of the gory stuff worked, other times there was just stuff that I'm just like, okay, now this is just gratuitous now. That's pretty much what I felt like watching it. I was just like, okay, now this is just getting gratuitous. I mean, is this really necessary? Like, example, the prologue. I understand they're trying to establish with what happened with the Book of the Dead in the prologue, but that whole opening scene could have been cut out, and they probably could have gone without shooting it and saved themselves some extra money from having to hire those actors. I understand they're trying to be like, oh yeah, this is the stuff that the book predicts. It could have been executed a lot better. The second thing that bothered me was that it borrowed a lot of plot points and a lot of imagery from the other Evil Dead movies, almost to the point where they felt like they were doing it out of a formality, and not really out of say, hey, we're paying homage, more just like, well, since this is Evil Dead, we've got to incorporate this, and we've got to incorporate that, and we've got to have this scene, and we've got to have that scene. It was just kind of a case of, if this was an original story, it could have branched out a little bit more. It could have taken some opportunities that I felt they didn't really take. Because another thing is that I'm one of those people who thinks that with films, particularly horror films, the less you see, the more terrifying it can be. I understand that the Evil Dead movie, the original, was all about the gore and everything, but just with the way that the scenes played out, it would have worked out a lot better if a lot more stuff was implied rather than shown explicitly. They could have set the mood a lot better by implying more things rather than showing us outright. And again, some of the stuff seemed, well, needlessly gratuitous. Now, speaking of stuff with the story feeling pointless, this film literally has 3 ending fake-outs. And that's one thing I dislike. I mean, 1 fake-out I can understand, but 3 ending fake-outs? That's a little overindulgent. Especially with an ending that just seemed kind of, well, stupid. That was the other major complaint I have about the film, is the ending fake-outs, especially when the stuff that they were building up to wasn't really worth it. I mean, Okay, I obviously can't talk about this without spoiling stuff, so click here. If you've seen the movie, click here so that I can go into the depth about this, because there is no way I can talk about this without spoiling it in this video. So only click here if you've actually seen the movie and can understand what I'm talking about. So yeah, overall, I didn't really enjoy the film. I mean, it was moderately entertaining and I actually cared about the characters, which gets it some points, but I'm not a big fan of the over-the-top gore, and some of the scenes seem kind of pointless, and it really is hindered by the fact that it's an Evil Dead movie, or at least trying to be like the others. If it was like saying, hey, we're the Evil Dead, but we're gonna go... It's kind of one of those cases where it would have been better if it went completely on its own, rather than trying to be super faithful to the original or being like the original. That's the biggest thing I can say about this film, is that if it had tried to take a few more liberties with a few certain things, it could have been a lot better. If you like the original films, or if you're into the borderline cheesy gore fests, you'll enjoy it. But if you're an average moviegoer who's just looking for a horror film that's scary and entertaining, I recommend skipping this one. I mean, it's got some decent scares, but it's not worth it for the over-the-top gore if you're actually looking for something that's genuinely scary. There's some better horror films out there. With that said, on my personal scale, I give the Evil Dead Remake a 3 out of 5. Again, it's a 3 out of 5 because I at least cared about the characters and it actually endeared me to the characters, so it gets some points for that. But some of the over-top and, in my opinion, pointless gore scenes just kind of hurt it, as well as the fact that it tried to shoehorn in some Evil Dead imagery for the sake of saying, hey, we're the Evil Dead, we've got all this stuff full circle, when it really could have done without it. So that's it for this week's episode of Romney's Reviews. Next week I'll be taking a look at 42, which is the Jackie Robinson biopic. It has nothing to do with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Well, yeah. It's basically, it's about the first African-American baseball player. We all have seen the trailers. That's what I'm reviewing next week. So yeah, see ya.